Hello everyone. Today we are going to start the section 1 of your textbook, that is Introduction to Prose. I will give a brief introduction to this part. In this part we will discuss various types of prose written, that is stories, autobiography, newspapers, essays, travelogues, etc. Among the other things that we study in these portions, there are functions of prose, evolution of prose, development of prose, early prose translations of King Alfred, Anglo-Saxon chronicle, uh, prose of ancient period from Anglo-Saxon period, Bible translations, important works of that period, pamphlets, uh, written documents of those periods, 18th century prose, 19th century prose, etc. etc. Then various types of essays are being introduced: formal essay, impersonal essay, informal essay, periodical essay, like this. So these are the various elements that are incorporated into the section 1. So textbook provides a short description of each variety. You should read each variety carefully. In class, I will be explaining the concept. So there is no need of by hearting the concepts. Instead, try to understand the concept. Underline the important statements or definitions in the textbook after the class. So the purpose of this section is to give you an overview of the evolution and development of prose as a particular form of literature. This part will be familiarizing you with how prose developed as a particular form of literature. It also introduces various types of prose writing. So unlike the previous batches that studied here, from your batch onwards, there won't be any objective questions for examinations. Instead, you will be having short answer questions of 2 marks, paragraphs of 5 marks, and essays of 10 marks. So when you study, this point should be kept in your mind, that what can you expect from the textbook. So please keep in mind the marks are 2 marks questions, 5 mark questions, and 10 marks questions. Now let us see what is prose. See, prose, what is prose? You know what is prose, in fact, you know it, though you may find it difficult to define. We talk to each other in prose. Then we write letters to our friends in prose. In examinations, we write answers to the paragraph questions and essays in prose. In newspapers, we read prose. A story is written in prose, so you know what it is. You, even though you may not be able to define it, you identify prose when you see it. So what is it? It will be easy to understand when you compare it with poetry. When you compare it with poetry, it will be easy for you to identify it. You identify poetry when you read it. Similarly, you understand prose when you read it. According to your textbook, prose is ordinary written language in contrast to poetry. Ordinary written language. That is how your textbook defines prose. You can underline that. Another definition is that it is a simple form of language, simple form of language, and has a loose defined structure. It is not tight like poetry. It has a loose structure, loosely defined structure. Another definition, you can also underline that. Another definition is that prose, it has a natural flow of speech. It is not artificial. It is not deliberate. It has a natural flow of speech and ordinary grammatic structure. Ordinary grammatic structure means prose have very ordinary, very simple grammatic structure, not complicated grammatic structure. And as I said before, normal everyday speech is rendered in prose. We talk, we converse each other in prose. So that is how prose is defined. Then what is poetry? You will understand prose more when you compare it with poetry. You know that poetry is written in a well-defined pattern. Well-defined pattern. In poetry, words are carefully arranged to get some aesthetic effect. Carefully arranged. When you say so, you must understand that in prose, words are not carefully arranged. Uh, so the aesthetic effect is a necessity in poetry, but in prose it is not so. Sometimes musical effects are also expected from poetry. To get rhyming effects are also expected. Rhyming, so one word rhymes with each other, um, like that. Poetry is written according to some measurements that we call meter. In Malayalam we say vrittam. Poetry is written according to meter. Poetry is metrical. While we compare it with prose, prose is not metrical. Prose is not written according to a pattern. No meter, no aesthetic, not much aesthetic effect, no rhyme. It is plain. So, but still we must understand that there are some writers who try is to bring the effects of poetry to prose. Such writings are called prose poetry. Textbook says verse is systematic. Systematic means well ordered, and formulaic. Formulaic means that is written according to a prescribed formula, while prose makes us remember ordinary speech. So prose is like ordinary speech. Let us find out the etymology of the word prose. Etymology means origin and development of. Let us see the origin and development of this word prose. The English word prose first appears in 14th century. It is derived from an old French word called prose itself. The French word prose originated from the Latin expression prosa ratio, means straightforward, direct speech. So straightforward, something that is told in a very direct manner. While poetry is not something said in a straightforward manner. Meanings are hinted in poetry. So that is just a beginning to prose. You can read the textbook, the introduction to prose, the first paragraph, and its etymology. So another thing that I would like to bring to your attention is that I would like to bring your attention to the pronunciation of the word we learned from the essay on Running After One Side by Chesterton. See, I had introduced the word archipelago, which means a group of islands. I had introduced the pronunciation of the word as archipelago, but this is not wrong. It is not chi. In fact, the real pronunciation is archipelago. Archi. So the pronunciation of ch is often confusing. Sometimes it is pronounced as chi, ch, and sometimes it is pronounced as k. Archipelago. That is how it is pronounced here. While in some other words like mm, orchard, it is ch there. In case of stomach, again it is k. So uh, uh, I would like to correct the pronunciation I have taught in the class. That is archipelago, meaning a group of islands. So Devika from your class corrected it, and congratulations and thank you very much.